Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be discussing something I've been wanting to talk about for a little while. It's something that impacts me personally, but also is very impactful in the mental health journeys and recovery of so many of us. So today I'm going to be talking about panic attacks. I've dealt with mental health for many years in my life, since a young age really, since high school as I've touched upon, and so a lot of experiences in my mental health journey are feeling a little bit more distant, less tangible than they were. And let me tell you, panic attacks are definitely not one of those experiences. For me, panic attacks are just the scariest thing, and in a almost vicious circle kind of way, the fear of having another panic attack, because they are so tangible and so real and can feel so real at the time, is almost leading into the fear that can cause the panic attack itself. So today I'm going to talk a little bit more about how we can identify what triggers that vicious cycle, how you can recognize the start of a panic attack, and how to maybe deal a bit with that. So people often forget that the body and the mind are very much linked, and that is shown in just how physical the symptoms of a panic attack can be. For myself, I find my chest is tight. I think I've mentioned this in previous videos, but it feels almost like a hand around my heart, around my chest, squeezing. It's such a tightness that it can leave me short of breath, in need of being in a more open space, less sort of crowded. Even if it's not a crowded space that I'm in, I've been sitting with 3 or 4 people before when I felt the onset of a panic attack and needed to find my own space there. Other sort of symptoms for myself, or signs that I'm about to have a panic attack, could be nausea, the feeling that I need to be sick, that I need to get out of there, that I need to be with a trusted person or no one at all, like I've mentioned. And I may feel frozen. I may feel unable to do anything just because of the dread, because I've had panic attacks before, and although I do remember my first one now, it's very much intrinsically linked that I am afraid of having another one, as well as being afraid of the repercussions of whatever it is that's offset the panic attack. Whatever the trigger is itself, the dread that is causing me may cause me to feel frozen and numb and unable to act. And so it's natural to want to avoid that feeling. And so it's important to be able to identify what your triggers are, not because you want to avoid them constantly, because of course that can have an impact on your life, but just so you can be able to learn to manage them, which is, of course, it's not easy. It's not as easy as it sounds, not for anyone. But being able to identify what triggers your panic attacks is the first step in being able to manage that and cope with that on your own, to self-manage, which is so important because it gives you back the power. So triggers can be any number of things. It could be something biological. You could just be more prone to anxiety chemically, and high levels of anxiety that can cause panic attacks. It could be something evolutionary, like fear of big crowds, which is of course stemming from the whole predator-prey thing back in the day. And that's natural, like agoraphobia, fear of being in crowds, fear of leaving the house, stems from these more biological urges. And so this is quite a common trigger for people. It could be linked to major life events, the things that trigger your panic attacks, maybe something to do with a relationship ending, strain on a relationship, financial strain. These are quite common ones, things that I have sort of dealt with. Quite a common sort of biological urge and trigger is unwanted physical contact, which is definitely one for myself, one that I've had to deal with recently. Being harassed by strangers when I'm out is very triggering to me and has become increasingly sort of apparent as an issue in my life that I definitely need to deal with, but also needs to be dealt with in society, because it's not a behaviour that's acceptable, and it is one that a lot of people find exceptionally triggering. But again, I've spoken about that in previous videos and definitely a topic for future things. But that is one of my triggers. I have a lot of personal triggers, as do many people, that are not biological, that are not evolutionary. They're very personal to you. And it could be down to a previous trauma, as many of mine are, previous bullying, previous toxic relationships. For myself, I find the silent treatment very triggering just because of conditioning that was enforced upon me in a previous toxic relationship with an old friend back in high school. Things like unrest in a relationship and confrontation, sort of for the same reason, feeling people aren't not on side, but people have unrest in their relationship with me. It can cause me to need to resolve that right away, and if something is left unresolved, that can be really triggering for me, and it causes my anxiety to really amp up until I feel that in my mind is dealt with and resolved. And that's something that I'm still working through, and something that I've spoken to professionals about, and something that I work through on a daily basis, because it's clear that what I've been through, like in my high school years, has really affected me in that way. So those are just some of my personal triggers there. We'll talk a little bit now about how you can manage that anxiety and manage the rising levels of panic that can cause a panic attack. Because now that we can identify those, your first instinct may be to avoid the thing that's causing the panic attack, which is very, very natural, and it's something that I am definitely very culpable of. When there's a person or a situation that I fear and dread is going to cause that panic attack and cause that feeling of dread, it's natural to want to avoid that circumstance, that party, that house, that person, whatever it might be your work. But if you continue to avoid it, it will impact your life in a serious way, in a large way, and that's not fair on you, because you are an innocent victim to your own mental health here, your own mental illness, and you shouldn't have to adjust your life on the basis of what you may find triggering. Instead, we should deal with this, and again, it sounds easier than it is, but there are so many different ways of managing it. If, for example, your panic manifests itself in fast breathing, hyperventilating. I find shortness of breath is an issue, but many people hyperventilate and fast breathe to the point of hyperventilation. You can try breathing exercises, you could try guided meditation. There's plenty of apps for this, there are plenty of YouTube videos. Some of my favourites are the STOPP app, that's STOPP with 2 P's, I'll link it in the description below. But it's a really good app. It's actually cognitive behavioural therapy based, CBT. So if that's an approach that you think would work for you, it's really good at just breaking the cycle of anxiety that just seems to feed into itself. Because panic attacks can be such a vicious cycle. Even once you're in the panic attack yourself, you can feed further unhelpful thoughts into that panic of feeling like it's never going to end, feeling like it's inescapable, and when it's really bad, feeling like your life is in danger because of the pain, because of the ache, because of the panic, feeling like you might have a heart attack, you might die. Those unhelpful thoughts can be rationalized. You can come up with a mission statement, as it were, little statements that help you remember what is real, what is grounded. Make those when you're not panicking, and learn to read them not just in the moments of panic, but in the moments where things are calm as well, so that you can rehearse those and you can practice those, and look at those mission statements when you're feeling the rise of the panic, so that they are more effective. So yeah, there's the STOPP app. I also use the Feel Good app, which you can get from your GP. You can get a code so you can access all the tracks for free. It's a sort of guided meditation. It's not CBT based or anything like that, but I found it really useful. Particular tracks are really useful for helping me drift off to sleep, because that can be when the stress is worse. My parents always used to have a saying that everything seems worse in the evenings, and it really does. I don't know if it's because you're dreading the next day and things you might have to deal with, but things really can culminate in the evenings and seem worse then, and sleep can be very difficult for people that deal with high levels of anxiety and panic. So the Feel Good app is really good. Speak to your GP about it. I'll link it in the description down below. Other things you can try, as well as challenging unhelpful thoughts, guided meditation. A personal recommendation of my own is ASMR, which is Autonomous Sensory Meridian Response, which is basically videos that create pleasant noises and pleasant voices that create tingles in your brain, basically. That response is in the name. It's difficult to describe unless you're checking one out yourself. So if that's for you, check it out. Put in some headphones. I find them particularly relaxing. So that's a personal recommendation of my own. Aside from that, I would say just don't lose hope. I know panic attacks are so scary, and that fear, you have to be courageous when facing panic attacks and overcoming them, but it is a courage and a bravery and a strength that we all have within us. And if we just keep practicing dealing with these on our own, there's nothing wrong with avoiding your triggers at all, but as long as we can maybe learn to practice to cope with these on our own, we'll feel safer when we're on our own and stronger in dealing with panic, because it is still very much an aspect of my life that I'm dealing with, and we can get through this together with the support of each other, the support of our other mental health warriors. So thanks very much, guys. Your support means everything, and thanks for hearing me today.